Yeah, I'm gender fluid. Never did I think I would ever make a coming out video on a channel that is pretty much based on my transness, but here we are. It's just, even though I make a lot of videos talking about gender and stuff, I never really talk about my own gender that much. And this extends to real life. I'll wear my little gender fluid non-binary pride badges, I'll have my little funky pronouns in bio, but I never really correct anyone when they mistake me for a totally binary man. Part of this is because I am a man. Being a trans man is a big part of my gender, and most of the time I'm not really in the mood to explain to cis people how someone can have conflicting gender identities. And since I like being a man and referred to as such, I just won't say anything. And even some of you at home, trans people watching this, might be confused on how I can identify as a trans man and as gender fluid, and the answer is, gender isn't real. Nothing about gender makes any type of sense. I don't understand why we're pretending that it does. Babies are born, and we determine the names parents are supposed to give them, what language everyone around them is going to use for them, what colors they should wear, the toys they should be playing with, the hobbies they should be taking up, the length their hair should be, the options of clothing they should have, all based on what is essentially a genetic coin flip at birth on which set of organs you have. Gender is just an absolute shit show of nothing making sense. I think we can all just commit to gender anarchy and just use whatever words we feel like best describe our own internal chaos. So if your problem with my gender is that it doesn't make sense, I guarantee if you think about it, yours doesn't either. So yes, I do still identify as a trans man. This is because I relate and ascribe myself to the experience of what we would call a trans man. Since I started discovering trans language for myself, being a trans man, being FTM, has been the longest lasting label I've had. I do lean a bit more towards FTM just because I do feel like my connection to trans men has more to do with my medical transition. Even though I'm gender fluid, I still want to undergo what most would consider a binary trans man's transition. I've obviously been on testosterone for over a year and I have no plans to ever stop taking it. I'm in the process of getting top surgery and one day I even want to get phalloplasty as well. For me to alleviate dysphoria and to feel more euphoria, I am taking the journey to what we would consider a male body. A word that has fallen in and out of use, but I'm seeing more trans people start to use again, is the word transsexual, and I really like this word. I think it's currently being used by trans people who are medically transitioning or consider medical transition an important part of their transness, but you know, like I said, gender isn't real. You can just use whatever labels you want. You don't have to be like medically transitioning to say transsexual. Just like use whatever words you want. That's just like, that's what I'm hearing. And so for me, when I say trans man, I'm more saying a transsexual man, not a transgender man. I am transgender just because that's like the umbrella term that most non-cis people use, but to me, I'm transitioning my sex from female to male, man to woman, and my gender isn't really transitioning, but is an ever-flowing fluid. We're circling back to the gender fluid thing now. A way I like describing my gender fluidity to people is that I'm not gender fluid in the very binary sense it is often described as, feeling like a man one day and a woman the next. My gender isn't a fluid flowing from the binary banks, crashing waves into being a man one day and causing floods on the beaches of womanhood the next. But rather, if you were to collect all the genders and then grind them into a pulp and make that into a fluid, that would be my gender. I'm a man, but also I'm a woman. But also I'm neither. But also I'm both. I'm a boy who is a girl, but also a girl who is a boy. And also the fiery hot surface of the sun. And also the idea of thunderstorms. And also all of the universal monsters. And also all of the cryptids. And also Gerard Way. That's my gender. I feel masculine in the way women are masculine, and then feminine in the way men are feminine. Like, when I go out in fucking cargo and a flannel, that's me being butch, being a little tomboyish, peak dyke energy. And then if I go out in a skirt and fishnets, that's just me being a silly little guy. Just your average man filled with joyous whimsy. I paint my nails to be a boy and I wear boxers to be a girl. I don't understand what's so confusing about that for people. That's really the best way I can explain my gender, and if you're still confused, then I think that just means you're a little too trapped in cis-normative society's binary way of thinking, and, you know, that's really not my problem to solve. Anyways, these are my pronouns, he, ze, they. Most people use he, him for me, sometimes I'll get a they, them, and then once in a blue moon someone online will use ze, them. I've thought about she, her pronouns, but I don't think I'm quite there yet. yet. Maybe one day, but that day is not today. If, like, you're queer, using she, her, and, like, the campy gay slang way, then, like, go for that. I'm totally fine with that. But in every other context, these are my pronouns, please use them. And in terms of other gendered language, I live for anarchy. Like, literally, use whatever you want. In formal settings, I pretty much just either use Mr. or mix, but other than that, just, like, fucking go balls to the walls. Man, woman, boy, girl, king, queen, ghost, ghoul, goblin, I don't care. What I especially wish people would do is to mismatch gendered language. Like, do like a he's such a pretty girl. Like, something like that. Like, have fun with it. All of this gender fuckery really doesn't feel new to me. I've been out to myself as gender fluid since, like, a while before I even started tea, so probably around 2 years. And I haven't felt like my gender fluidity is this, like, burning secret I'm hiding from the world. I just sort of don't go out of my way to tell people out of, I guess, a desire to maintain acceptance. Even though the world is a deeply unkind place to all trans people, there is a certain security granted to binary transness. I'm not gonna use the word privilege because that just feels like initiating an oppression Olympics of like, which trans people have it the worst, which is like the least productive conversation to have in our community. But the truth of the matter just is, if you are a binary trans person, it is easier for well-meaning cis people to accept and respect your identity. It doesn't really require too much deconstruction of cis people's understanding of gender to just say, instead of fitting into the binary category you were assigned at birth, you'd rather be in the other one. However, cis people's understanding of non-binary trans people is almost non-existent. Every time I hear a cis person talking about being non-binary, they've always just all decided that it's a third binary option instead of, reflecting inward on their cis normativity and what society has taught us to be true about gender and reassessing their worldview. They all take the much easier route of going, oh, being non-binary is using they, them pronouns, being androgynous, and not feeling like a man or a woman. Which, sure, maybe for a select few, being non-binary is exactly that. But most, if not all, non-binary people I know do not fit into this cis idea of what non-binary is. A lot of non-binary people use gendered pronouns like he, him, or she, her, either alongside they, them, or they don't even use they, them at all. Some non-binary people may present androgynous, but others might present completely masculine, completely feminine, or a mix. There are non-binary men, and there are non-binary women. Being non-binary doesn't negate you from using other gendered terms. For some people, non-binary is its own independent label, but for some it is just one of the many words they use for their gender. Because this isn't even getting into other gender labels that people use for when they're outside the binary. Labels like gender fluid, or demi-boy, or demigirl, or agender, or bigender, trigender, pangender, gender flux, gender queer, the list goes on for as long as you can fathom. So as you can imagine, all of this leaves cis people utterly dumbfounded. Because even with the best of intentions, understanding all of this binary-less gender requires a deep, deep reevaluation of everything they've ever known to be true about gender. And because it emotionally exhausts me to even explain to cis people how I can be born a girl and want to be a boy, the idea of having constant queries and questions about cis people about my gender fills me with dread. Which is why I have been hesitant to be out as anything other than a trans man, and to just keep my gender fluid non-binariness to myself and queer friends. Honestly, that's probably how I'm gonna keep it in my offline life, just never bringing up my gender fluidness unless in the presence of other queers. But I wanted to make this video online, to be as out as I can, because being out wasn't always how I wanted my online presence to be. When I started making videos on this channel, I thought it would be simpler to just not talk about my own gender to be more accessible to the new audience I was trying to build. And then this video, my top 10 trans mass tips, started getting a lot of traction, and I was becoming a little bit of a trans micro-celebrity. My other videos about being trans mass were starting to get views too, and I was getting, and still get, comments from young trans people saying how my videos were helping them come out and learn to accept themselves. And it hit me that I was becoming the very beacon of light that first led me to trans salvation. When I was first coming out, I was watching a lot of trans mass YouTubers. People like Sam Collins, Ty Turner, Chase Ross, Miles McKenna, Storm Ryan, Mac Beta, Jackson Bird, Noah Finch, Jamie Rains. You guys will probably recognize a few of the names in that list. So when people started commenting that my content was helping them realize they were trans mask, and that they were young trans people looking to me for advice and for comfort, I started realizing I was becoming just like those creators I just mentioned. I was someone with a platform, platform. Granted, a very small platform, but I was seemingly doing some good with it. However, there was one other YouTuber I failed to mention in that list of transmask creators. One YouTuber that I watched religiously. I had seen all of his videos. I was a very avid consumer of his content. For this video, I'm just going to refer to him as Clarence with a K, and I think if you know, you know. You'll know exactly who I'm talking about, but if you don't know who I'm talking about, don't bother finding out. I really don't recommend his videos. Basically, Clarence was a binary trans man who made videos pretty much for only other binary trans men. And in all of these videos, there was these deep underlying tones of toxic masculinity, internalized transphobia, externalized transphobia, and the deep desire to crave cis validation. Clarence liked to push the idea of trans trenders, which is that if you didn't present in the exact opposite way of the gender you were assigned at birth, you must not be a real trans person. He didn't think non-binary people were, like, real, and he didn't think it was okay for any binary trans person to do something outside the binary. And all of this was the core message of his videos. Clarence had, like, roughly 10,000 subscribers when I started watching him, but by the time I stopped, he had like over 100,000. A lot of people bought into his ideology, and a lot of non-binary trans people, myself included, from watching him, learned to deny that part of our existence. And it was honestly so much worse than I'm even describing. There have been several video essays made by other trans creators outlining Clarence and like the negative effect of his videos and what he did to so many young, impressionable trans masks. And so now I'm starting to get to my point. When I realized there were more young, impressionable trans mask eyes on my videos, I made it a mission to myself to be the exact type of YouTuber I needed instead of Clarence. So, since Clarence made videos about clothing for trans masks, pushing the idea that you always need to be dressing to pass as male and to fit into the binary, I made videos about wearing what you want and what makes you comfortable, and that you can dress masculine, but that's not the only valid way of dressing. Clarence made videos on how to know if you're really trans, saying that if you don't have crippling gender dysphoria, you can't be a real trans person, so I made a video just saying identify as whatever the hell you want. When Clarence and other adjacent YouTubers made tips for trans masks, they were all pretty much exclusively about tips on passing as male and performing a cis ideal of masculinity. So in my tip videos, I focused on more broader tips that could be more inclusive to a range of different types of trans mask experiences and presentations and identities, and just emphasizing more on making yourself happy and comfortable. I don't know if I did a good job at being an anti-Clarence channel. I really don't know if what I did has saved people from falling down the same Clarence pipeline that I fell down. But I do know that I tried my best, and I know that people have left comments claiming that my videos helped them feel better about themselves and their gender. And so that brings us why I feel like I should come out on YouTube. But I know, we took a while to get here, but we got here. Because basically, if I am someone that other trans people find comfort and visibility in, then I need to be visible for my own people. And if my mission is to be the trans YouTuber I wish I had, I need to make videos about the type of trans person that I am. Representation is not only important, it is vital to the growth and the liberation of any marginalized community, and since I have a platform, I should provide representation for my own community. If I'm gonna be a trans mask YouTuber, I'm gonna be a trans mask, gender fluid, non-binary, transsexual man YouTuber, and you're just gonna have to fucking deal with it. Overall, this video is the first step into the new era of Theo's Ghost that I want to move into, and the final step in my anti-Clarence agenda. In terms of things like trans mask tips and that type of content, I feel like I've done all I can do. Other than continuing to make videos documenting where I go with my medical transition, I feel like I've done all I can in terms of being your stereotypical trans mask YouTuber. So now, me making this video, formally coming out as the exact type of trans person Clarence would label as a trans trender, is the nail on the coffin to being the exact type of YouTuber that I didn't have. But where does that leave Theo's Ghost moving forward, you may ask? Well, first off, don't start thinking that just because I'm ceasing from my current type of content doesn't mean I'm not going to still be making trans-related content. This channel is for the transgenders. But I think I've found the type of content that I want to make and push myself with. This video is the third fully scripted video that I've done, and I think I want to make the turn towards more fully scripted content. The other two two scripted videos, obviously being my My Chemical Romance video and my 1 Year on Tea video. Both those videos are longer in length and required much more effort than usual videos do, but I find the end result much more worth it. And I have many ideas for bigger videos, a lot to do with me and my personal life. Which again, brings us back to why I wanted to come out. If I'm going to make my content as autobiographical as I envision it, you gotta know my actual gender. These are the plans that I have for my channel and what I want to do with it. Will I complete all of these plans? Maybe, maybe not. Only time will tell. But if you're still watching to this point, I hope that means that you're along for the ride and will enjoy whatever content I find myself delivering to you. Happy New Year, everybody.